Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter-Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet.
Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
The last Saturday of June brings us more drama with crime classic Suspense, Lights Out, at the CBS Radio Workshop, and an episode of Claudia. That's all straight ahead on this Saturday, and yes, this is the 29th day of June, the 180th first day of the year. We have 185 days left till we get to 2025. One of the architects of the Manhattan Project, J. Robert Oppenheimer, had his access pulled and was essentially discharged from the Atomic Energy Commission on this date in 1954.
The trouble with secrecy is that it denies to the government itself the wisdom and the resources of the whole community, of the whole country. And the only way you can do this is to let almost anyone say what he thinks, and to let men deny what they think is false, argue what they think is false. You have to have a free and uncorrupted communication.
Oppenheimer speaking on the CBS program See It Now in January of 1955. In 1956, the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 signed, officially creating the U.S. interstate highway system. 1972, the Supreme Court ruled in Furman versus Georgia the death penalty could constitute cruel and unusual punishment, prompting some states to revise their laws. 1995, the Space Shuttle Atlantis and the Russian space station Mir docked, forming the largest man-made satellite ever to orbit Earth. In 2002, President George W. Bush chose to invoke the 25th Amendment, temporarily transferring his powers to Vice President Dick Cheney while Bush underwent a colonoscopy. In 2003, actress Katharine Hepburn passed away.
Well, maybe we better sing. I can't give you any... Well, sing, David. I can't give you anything but love, baby. That's the only thing I can do, baby. Dream a while, scheme a while, find happiness, and I guess all those things you always find. Oh, gee, it's looking swell, baby. Diamond bracelets always never sell, baby. Till that lucky day, you know darn well. Oh, baby. Baby. Oh, David, where is Owen?
I'll be back.
Oh, dear.
From the 1938 motion picture Bringing Up Baby with Cary Grant. Hepburn was married to Spencer Tracy for over a quarter of a century until his death in 1967. Hepburn died of a tumor on this date in 2003 at the age of 96. 2006, the Supreme Court ruled President George W. Bush's plan to try Guantanamo Bay detainees in military tribunals violated U.S. and international law. In 2007, Apple released its first mobile phone, the iPhone. In 2009, financier Bernie Madoff received a 150-year sentence for his multi-billion-dollar fraud. 2010, talk show host Larry King announced he would step down from his CNN show in the fall after 25 years on the air. And in 2012, a derecho, a strong, sustained, straight-line wind that went on for a very long time, swept across the eastern United States, leaving at least 22 people dead and millions without power. Among those, in addition to Katharine Hepburn, who passed away on this date, include poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning, How Do I Love Thee, Let Me Count the Ways, actor Fatty Arbuckle, actress Jane Mansfield, boxer Primo Carnera, Bob Crane of Hogan's Heroes fame, actress Lana Turner, singer-actress Rosemary Clooney, also actor, director, producer, screenwriter Carl Reiner, and actor Alan Arkin, who passed away a year ago today. Among those born on this date include the delightful actor Slim Pickens.
Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat toe-to-toe with the Ruskies.
Hey, what about Major Kong?
From the 1964 motion picture Dr. Strangelove, Slim Pickens, born on this date in history, as was the founder of the Mayo Clinic, Dr. William Mayo, also singer-actor Nelson Eddy, composer Leroy Anderson, composer Frank Lesser, also from Pete and Gladys, where she starred with Harry Morgan, Kara Williams, singer Little Eva, about the locomotion, don't you know, and the comedian Richard Lewis. All born on this date in history. We lost Richard Lewis last year at the age of 76.
Hi, this is Jeff Foxworthy. It is now time for the birthday announcements. The following people are now officially older than dirt.
She was Veronica in CW's Riverdale. Camila Mendez is 30 today. Chris Manawa on Fear the Walking Dead. Lorenzo James Hendry is 31. He does Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. Colin Jost is 42. Racer Martin Truex Jr., 44. Singer Nicole Scherzinger is 46. He was Wyatt Donnelly in Weird Science. Now he's a professor in English at Cal State Long Beach. Ian Mitchell Smith is 56. From Men at Work, Colin Hay is 71. And he was a fine actor. Gary Busey is 80 years old today.
Just you know why you and I will by and by no true love way. Sometimes we'll sigh, sometimes we'll cry, and we'll know why. Just you and I know true love way.
He portrayed Buddy Holly in the Buddy Holly story. Gary Busey, 80 years old today. Those just a few of the people who celebrate the 29th day of June as their birthday. And if this is your birthday,
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
okay, we'll get started on this Saturday Classic Radio Theater in just a moment with an episode of Crime Classics, the Checkered Life and Sudden Death of James Fisk Jr., going back 71 years to June 29, 1953. More than just old-time radio, it's history. This is Classic Radio Theater. I'm Wyatt Cox.
Do you know how old the school building in your community is? If it's over 25 years old, the chances are that it's woefully inadequate. Join with the groups in your community working for better school conditions. Remember, better schools build a stronger America.
Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Crime Classics going back 71 years to June 29th, 1953, The Checkered Life and Sudden Death of James Fisk Jr.
Good evening. This is Crime Classics. I am Thomas Hyland. I'm going to tell you another true crime story. Listen. The man who just fell down the stairs is Colonel James Fisk, Jr. Although the Colonel is a man given to the consumption of dozens of Blue Point oysters and bottles of heady wine at a sitting, his friends were given to pointing him out as a man inordinately steady on his feet. So why did he tumble down the stairs? And in New York's Grand Central Hotel, no less, where stair tumbling was frowned upon. The Colonel didn't slip. He wasn't pushed. He was shot. The sudden presence of 2 bullets in him had upset his equilibrium. The man who's running away is the man who just shot the Colonel. His name, Edward S. Stokes. Until recently, the Colonel's very dear friend. There he goes. And tonight, my report to you on the checkered life and sudden death of Colonel James Fisk, Jr.
Crime Classics. A series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land, from every time. Your host each week, Mr. Thomas Hyland, connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murders. And now once again, Thomas Hyland.
Colonel Fisk lay at the bottom of the stairs a few minutes before 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, January the 6th, 1872. He was dying. His life was coming to an end. And he would be sorely missed by his family, Mrs. Fisk and the children, and by his intimates, among whom were Jay Gould, Boss Tweed, and the heavier stockholders of the day. A man dying, and I know the precise instant when his dying began. It started some months ago in a rather ornate house in Washington Square. 2 women were talking, and the younger one said,
Annie, how can I meet Colonel Fisk?
That was the instant. And the older one said,
Dearie, dearie, dearie.
But the younger one was not young enough to take dearie for an answer.
I mean it, Annie. I want to meet him.
He's so wealthy, isn't he?
And all I have is a black and white silk dress and an empty purse. So very empty, dear Annie.
Oh, orphans in the rain and empty purses sadden me so, dear Josie.
And I've heard he's coming here tonight to visit with you.
The dear Colonel says I set such a good table. Dear Josie.
Yes?
Walk over there to that cabinet, dear Josie. In the very bottom drawer, you will find 2 candlesticks given to me by the minister from Egypt. Get them. Yes. They are heavy, aren't they? Now put them on the table. Mm-hmm. And light them. Good. Now blow them out, gently.
Well, Annie?
Dear Josie, will you join the dear Colonel and me for dinner tonight?
So nice of you to ask. I'd be delighted, dear Annie.
And so it was that Colonel Fisk and Josie Mansfield met. It was a highly successful meeting.
I kiss your hand, Josie.
You're a very sweet man.
Isn't she a dear?
So lovely.
And so poor.
So sad.
The Colonel was a man easily touched. And this was the era for young widows, beautiful and penniless. It was the era for weeping at the mere thought of such a situation. It was a decade of compassion and champagne. And this night, the meeting night, was one of the most poignant of the decade.
Tomorrow, Josie, a jewel to lie against the throat.
Oh, Colonel.
My carriage will call for you at noon and bring you to me.
And where will you be?
At Tiffany's.
The necklace counter?
Of course, my dear. More wine? Diamonds become you.
Oh, Colonel. Oh, Colonel.
Look at it, dear. Do you like it?
It's very nice.
And it's all yours.
Oh, thank you. I've always wanted a home of my own. And servants of my own.
6.
Kiss me, Colonel.
Good evening, Colonel.
Evening, Quimby. This is Mr. Stokes.
May I take your cane, sir?
Thank you, Quimby.
Is,
The mistress is in the drawing room. She's waiting for you.
This way, Stokes.
Hello, Colonel. And you must be the Colonel's best friend, Mr. Stokes.
I hope this is no imposition, ma'am.
Preparing dinner? Certainly not. I just sat here all day, listening to the new present the Colonel sent me, while the servants made ready.
Do you like the new music box, my dear?
It reminds me of you when you're away from me.
Such a pretty speech. How fortunate you are, Colonel.
Oh, wait till you taste her pheasant a la Esther.
I can hardly wait.
Now, will you two excuse me for a moment?
Where are you going, Colonel?
I left a small package for you out in the carriage, my dear. And
of course, we'll excuse you. So, you're Mr. Stokes.
So you're Josie.
I must say he was right. You are elegant.
He was right. You are very lovely.
You're younger than he told me.
And you're...
What?
You are.
Will you help me light the candles?
Josie.
Will you help me with the fireplace?
Josie.
The music box is run down. Will you...
Josie.
You won't help me with anything. You're wicked.
Yes, I am.
You're very wicked.
At the time Josie whispered this tender criticism, Mr. Edward Stokes was 5 feet 9 inches high. His head was covered with glossy curls, his complexion clear, his features regular, and his eyes dark blue. He was dressed in the height of fashion, and his diamond studs gleamed brilliantly. And after the colonel returned with a forgotten package...
Oh, a ruby pendant. Thank you, Colonel.
You're very welcome.
And after the wine was drunk and venison devoured, and the fingers dipped in the lemon water, after that evening of old friends and new, after that, there was a new day. And there was this.
Good morning, Mr. Stokes.
Good morning, Quimby.
The mistress is in the sitting room. She's waiting for you.
Thank you, my man. Josie.
Edward. Oh, wait, Edward. I was out this morning early shopping. Here, I bought something for you. Open it.
Josie. A pearl stick pin. There was no need for you to...
Oh, yes, there was. Now be quiet.
Several other scenes between these wild, storm-tossed lovers you might care to eavesdrop upon, since they'll give you a better understanding of the currents sweeping these two upon violent shores. Like this one.
The best champagne in New York. Now take off your little shoe. Here, use my mallet, dear. This croquet has brought the pink to your cheeks. Make your shot.
As is always the case in skullduggery of this sort, there is an in the meanwhile. So, in the meanwhile, in the Park Avenue home of Colonel James Fisk, Jr., the colonel and his lady. The children have been tucked away for the night, the servants snug in their quarters, as were the animals. A quiet hour, an hour for a man and his wife, and for family discussions.
You fool! You cheat! Blackguard!
Dear, the children, you'll awaken them.
A woman like that.
Have you no compassion in your heart? She's a widow.
Ha, ha.
Alone in the world. I am but her advisor.
Ha, ha. Now that's all you are.
What are you talking about?
What all of New York is saying.
And that is?
Ha, ha.
And that is?
The most concerned is the last to know.
Know what?
Your precious widow and Edward Stokes.
What?
Ha, ha, Colonel. Now you know what I've been through. The aggravation, the shame, the heartache, the sorrow, the unrequited love.
I'm sorry, Colonel. It's so late at
Quimby,
night.
where is,
The mistress is in her boudoir.
Go awaken her.
Who is it, Quimby?
It's not Mr. Stokes, ma'am.
Why, good evening, Colonel.
What's this I hear about you and that scamp, Edward Stokes?
Why, what have you heard?
That you and he...
Who told you that?
My wife.
You'd better go back to her, Colonel.
Then it's true.
I love him very much.
Josie.
Go back to your wife.
I warn you.
You warn me? You, Colonel?
Listen to me. I'll ruin you.
Please. Go home.
You and Edward Stokes. Mark my word. I'll ruin the both of you. My promise to you, if it takes the rest of my life.
The colonel left. The colonel was driven to his club, where the colonel spent the night. And the next morning, early, the colonel began the final week of his life.
You are listening to Crime Classics and your host, Thomas Hyland, and his report to you on the checkered life and sudden death of Colonel James Fisk, Jr.
I'd like to set the coordinates for you again. Take a reading of exactly where we are in time and space. The year is 1872. The place is New York City. Now, 1872 was a vintage year for pearls in the bottom of champagne glasses, of fatted railroad stocks, and the diamond harvest was spectacular. The term rags to riches was coined on a day in this year, when a raggedy sewing machine girl was summoned from her chores, taken by the hand, dressed in silk, then released into a gilded cage. New York City at this time was a center for many similar dramas, one of which we're concerning ourselves with. Colonel James Fisk, Jr. had compassion for a widow named Josie Mansfield. Josie Mansfield had compassion for the colonel's friend, Edward Stokes. The colonel, upon hearing of this arrangement, immediately went into action, in a colonel-like manner.
Your Honor, I want to swear out a warrant for the arrest of Edward S. Stokes for embezzlement.
Why, certainly, Colonel. We'll have the culprit in jail in no time at all.
Inside with you, Mr. Stokes.
Jailer.
Yes, sir, Mr. Stokes.
Do you have the list?
Yes, sir. Your living room furniture, the portraits, and the bed. I'll have them here in no time at all.
Edward Stokes was a model prisoner for 2 days. He was then released when the charge against him was dropped. Not to be outdone, he went into action in a manner which gained the plaudits of his cronies.
Your Honor, I want to swear out a warrant for the arrest of Colonel James Fisk, Jr. for false imprisonment.
Why, certainly, Mr. Stokes. We'll have the culprit in jail in no time at all.
Jailer?
Yes, sir, Colonel. The living room furniture, your easy chair in the library, and the bed. I'll have them here in no time at all.
War of nerves, tactics, and strategies, and reprisals. And the real victors, the gatherers of the loot, the lawyers. So the Colonel and Mr. Stokes called a truce, waved white napkins at each other across a gleaming table at Delmonico's.
Stokes, I think we both acted like children.
I agree with you, Colonel.
Let me fill your glass. Yeah. A toast. To a friendship.
Our friendship, Colonel.
Enough of jails and lawyers and arguments. Life is too short.
I'll drink to that, too. Colonel?
And we can settle our affairs like men.
I'll drink to that, too.
No, wait. Let's settle our affairs first.
Delighted.
There is only one thing which stands in our way.
Obviously.
Josie Mansfield.
You're right.
Stokes, you're not ever to see her again.
Colonel?
You agree?
Colonel, you're a fat, stupid fool.
I accept that. But you're never to see Josie Mansfield again.
Josie told me that if I saw you, I was to tell you you are a fat, stupid fool. And you are.
I warned you once, Stokes. I'm not going to warn you again.
Then I'll warn you. If you make any trouble, Colonel, you won't live to enjoy it. My promise to you.
Good evening, Mr. Stokes. The mistress is in the parlor.
Josie, wake up.
Oh, Edward. How nice, Edward.
Dearest, listen. It's important. Are you awake?
Well, of course, I just drowsed off. I was reading, waiting for you, and now you're here.
Josie, listen. It's about Colonel Fisk.
Oh, please don't talk about him. Not now.
He's ruined me.
What are you talking about?
I'm a pauper.
You? Why, you're one of the wealthiest young men in
No, not now. I don't have a penny.
What happened?
The stocks I had, all my assets.
Well?
The Colonel forced down the value of the Erie Railroad stocks, wiped me out.
Oh, Edward, I'm so sorry.
Josie.
Yes?
I'm poor now. Do you want me to leave? Never come back?
Darling Edward. Darling, dearest Edward.
Josie.
We'll beat him. We'll destroy the Colonel, you and I together.
That's impossible. He's too powerful.
He's a weakling.
What?
I can prove he's a weakling. He writes letters.
Letters?
I saved them. And that's not all.
What do you mean?
Dealings he's had. Dishonest business dealings. Would you like to look at them?
Dearest Josie, I love you so much. So that's why I thought it more discreet to hire a cab, Colonel. Surely you understand.
I must tell you, Stokes, when I agreed to meet you, to ride with you in a hired hack at night...
I explained the necessity of secrecy, Colonel.
As indeed you did not. You merely said secrecy. That is why I must tell you I am confused. Have you made another decision about Josie?
A tentative decision, Colonel.
Tentative?
Yes, it depends on you.
Oh?
I need money.
I know.
Badly.
I know.
Colonel?
Yes?
You love Josie very much, don't you?
I understand you now, Stokes.
I thought you would.
Do you want me to reimburse you for the money you've lost?
$250,000.
I know. In return for which, you'll give up Josie.
That's right.
I'm sure there must be a name for you, Mr. Stokes.
I'm sure of it.
I had an experience last night. I had dinner at home with my wife. The children were with us. After dinner, I played on the floor with my children. I heard them laugh. I heard my wife laugh, too. And I laughed, too. And there was no other meaning behind my laughter except enjoyment of my family.
Very touching.
And rewarding.
Then you're not interested in my proposal.
I'll get off at the next corner, Mr. Stokes. Tell the driver.
Of course. Next corner, cabby.
Well, Mr. Stokes, give my regards to Josie. Tell her I'm truly sorry for what's going to become of her. Goodbye, Mr. Stokes.
Colonel, wait.
I'm sorry we have nothing else to talk about.
Except the letters.
What letters?
You have a rich way with words, Colonel. I congratulate you.
I don't understand.
Oh, of course you do. The letters you wrote to Josie.
I see.
All of them.
I see.
They could ruin you.
Perhaps.
I remember one of the letters opened with, "Dearest Josie, my poor little widow, your sad tears still on my shoulders."
$10,000.
And another, "Dear Josie, this morning I was at Tammany Hall, and with Boss Tweed arrangements were made to relieve the city."
$10,000.
$250,000 for the letters, Colonel.
10,000, or you may publish them or do what you want with them.
Surely you're not serious.
Good night, Mr. Stokes.
10,000.
Bring your letters to me tomorrow, and you shall get your money. Good night.
An old almanac I have occasion to call on now and then says that Saturday, the 6th of January, in the year 1872, is the 66th anniversary of the Volunteer Fire Department of Roanoke, Virginia. Also, it predicts the day will be cold and clear with high westerly winds. So, we'll make an assumption. On a cold, clear Saturday morning, buffeted by the high westerly winds, Mr. Edward Stokes made his way to the Wall Street office of Colonel Fisk. Here he received more coldness and $10,000. Here he deposited with the colonel a stack of letters, wrapped in blue ribbon and sachet. Then Edward Stokes called on Josie Mansfield. He told her of the transaction. We must imagine that Josie's reaction went something like this.
You idiot! You bumbling, spineless idiot!
But Josie...
I should have known better than to trust you with those letters.
But $10,000 is better than nothing.
If you'd had the courage...
He told me 10,000 or nothing.
If you'd had the courage, he would have given you everything he owned. Why, the mere possession of the letter dated June 16th, 1871 would have been a fortune 10 times the amount you got.
But...
But what?
You have your jewels, this house. Surely you must be worth nearly $1 million yourself.
I love you, dear Edward, but that's my money. You'll just have... What is it, Quimby?
Miss Annie Wood wishes to speak with you.
Tell her I'm busy.
She said it's extremely urgent.
Extremely urgent.
Hello, Annie.
Josie, dear Josie, and dear Mr. Stokes.
Hello.
The judge came to see me for lunch a little while ago.
Judge? What are you talking about?
Judge Tripler.
Well, I don't see.
He just come from court. He just signed a warrant.
Yes?
For the arrest of dear Mr. Stokes on the charge of blackmail.
Colonel Fisk?
Yes. The dear judge told me that the colonel asked him to sign such a warrant. Josie.
Yes?
We'll be seeing each other more often, won't we, dear Josie?
Publication of the time. I quote, "The next that was seen of Edward Stokes, as far as is known, was at a few minutes before 4 o'clock, when he was walking carelessly up and down the main corridor of the Grand Central Hotel on the parlor floor. This corridor is 1 story above the street, is parallel with Broadway, and at its northern end is reached by a staircase from the street. Passing and repassing the head of the staircase, Stokes glanced furtively down the stairs. It was nearly 4 o'clock when Colonel James Fisk, Jr., drove up in a carriage to the door. Stepping out of his carriage and walking briskly across the pavement, he passed through the outer door of the hotel. When he had done so, he was heard to inquire for a certain Annette Latour. He was told she was in and started up the stairs.
Good afternoon, Colonel.
Stokes, don't!
You'll ruin me.
For the love of heaven, someone help me!
Edward Stokes was restrained a block away. The colonel didn't die immediately. He was lifted by 3 bellhops and taken to chambers supplied by the management. Doctors were called, and the colonel joked with them, as he joked with his many friends who came to visit him. He joked with everybody. The next day, in the middle of a joke, he died. Thomas Stokes pleaded self-defense. He was convicted of manslaughter in the 3rd degree. Josie Mansfield spent her remaining days with her aunt, Miss Annie Wood.
Here again is Thomas Hyland.
Next week, Long Melford in the county of Suffolk in England. The year, 1739. My report to you will be on the shrapnelled body of Charles Drew, Sr. Thank you. Good night.
James Fisk, Jr., tonight's crime classic, was adapted from the original court reports and newspaper accounts by Morton Fine and David Friedkin. The music was composed and conducted by Bernard Herrmann, and the program is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis. Thomas Hyland is portrayed on radio by Lou Merrill. James Fisk, Jr. was played by William Johnstone. Featured in the cast were Mary Jane Croft, Martha Wentworth, Steve Roberts, Harry Bartell, Paula Winslow, and Charles Calvert. Bob Lamont speaking.
An Armed Forces recording of crime classics from 71 years ago. That really did happen. It did go down much the way that was said. His life broadly fictionalized in the biopic The Toast of New York in 1937, starring Edward Arnold as Fisk. The Colt House revolver, known among collectors as the Jim Fisk model, or the Jim Fisk pistol, as it was used by Stokes in the murder. And the circumstances surrounding the murder, as we said today, dramatized in crime classics. So there you have it. 71 years ago, June 29, 1953, recounting the events of January of 1872. Crime classics here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Up next, an episode of Suspense from 70 years ago. And like the weather right now, there's too hot to live.
In case of national civil defense emergency, the emergency broadcast system may be activated. Then you would receive essential information by turning your radio dial to an EBS station operating in your area. The emergency broadcast system stations will be easy to identify because of their repeated announcements of the area they're serving.
This Saturday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox podcast continues now with an episode of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. 70 years ago, June 29th, 1954, Sam Edwards starring in A Day Like Today. It's just too hot to live.
And now, tonight's presentation from radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. Tonight, the story of a man who lost his shoes. And when you're suspected of murder and you've got to run for your life, and the temperature is in the 90s, why then you're correct in saying it's too hot to live.
Hey, you! Freeloader!
What?
We don't sell tickets on this freight.
It was empty. I didn't think anybody'd mind.
We're slowing down for a crossing. I don't want to find you when I come back.
Where are we?
Half mile from Marcus Junction. Thanks. Forget the thanks. Just beat it before somebody inquisitive starts asking questions.
Yeah, don't they always? The train rolls by slowly, and the crossing bell warns that death is here. I don't recognize it, though. I walk towards Marcus Junction, towards death. The sun is 11 o'clock high and starting to pucker the tar road. I'm heading in. Sweat is beginning to streak through the old suntan uniform, and my shoes are sucking tar every time I lift them. The sole of one boot busts loose and starts flapping against the road. That's bad. A drifter needs a good pair of shoes, and I'm on the drift. Marcus Junction. No different than any 1,000 others like it. About a mile square of small buildings all pasted together. I walk a couple of blocks without finding a shoemaker. The town is almost empty this Saturday morning. And then a door opens ahead of me, and a big man steps out. Really big, both ways. Big high and big wide. He's wearing steel-rimmed glasses screwed up tight above the pug nose of his round face, and 6 full inches of hat brim circle the pink flesh like a halo.
Why, good morning, son. My name's Benjamin. Benjamin Martin.
Good morning, Mr. Martin. Could you tell me...
Benjamin, son. Call me Benjamin. That's the handle that shakes this pump. Yeah. What's yours, boy?
Jeff Casey.
Jeffrey or Jefferson?
Jefferson.
Jefferson. That's a good name.
Now, don't think I'm changing the subject, but where could I get this fixed, Benjamin?
Huh? Well, pretty socks.
They are at that. But who'll take care of this shoe?
Yeah. I'm going down to Stacy's for a Coke. Shoe fixer's right next door. Come along, Jefferson.
As we turn, I see his left side, gun holstered high up on his hip, and the gold star with the word sheriff glinting in the sunlight.
Still wearing your old army clothes. I hear those duds wear like iron. You just throw them away when they start to rust.
The uniforms wear forever. These have seen their last war.
Well, what were you in, boy?
Air Corps. Captain. Pretty uniform, sweet pay, and lots of respect.
Yeah. You miss it, Jefferson?
Maybe I do.
What are you looking for now?
I'm not looking for anything, just living, more or less.
Yeah, a man ought to find more to do with his life than that.
It's all the same to me. I could die today, and it wouldn't make any difference to me. Or anyone else.
You got a bad taste in your mouth, but you'll spit it out someday. Hey, how do you like this weather? If it gets any warmer, it'll be almost too hot to live. In a manner of speaking, you understand.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, here's a shoe repair. I'll be next door. Leave your shoes and waddle in on them pretty socks of yours. I'll buy you a drink. Coke or coffee?
The shoemaker tells me that my shoes will take a couple of hours, so I start next door to join Benjamin. I don't know, maybe I'm feeling pretty good, but I pull an old schoolboy trick of mine. I take off my socks, roll them up, and throw them on the counter with my shoes. Then I walk outside to feel the cool, shaded cement trickle up through the bottom of my bare feet. Through the store window next door, I see the 4 people in the restaurant. Benjamin waves for me to come in. Inside the entrance, a blond sliver of a man who's showing about 3 inches of wrist and shin bone below the edges of his clothes. The squat moon-faced grill man has his pop eyes focused intently on the argument. His flabby hands, purple-red from too much hot soapy water and frying grease, make fluttering passes at a fly.
Now, look, I want you to get out of here once and for all.
I go in, brushing past the argument, walk over to Benjamin, and sit on the next stool.
I shall return.
Hi, Jefferson.
Hi, Benjamin. Came for the coffee.
In a minute. Rachel's about finished.
And all her sins must find her out. She's a Jezebel and kin only to the devil.
Yeah. You'll find it on the menu next week. Now find yourself a street corner and get it out of your system.
You are bad. Bad beyond all hope.
See you around, Pop. I don't hope.
The girl plays rough.
Well, that's just Rachel's way, Jefferson. Yeah, I see you lean to bare feet.
What's your friend having, Buster?
Benjamin, Rachel, Benjamin. Maybe smart to tack nicknames on people, but my folks figured me for a Benjamin, and I like it that way.
Sure, Buster. What'll it be, soldier?
The black coffee, lady. And don't let the uniform throw you. I'm no soldier anymore. The Hollywood line of her mouth twists up into a lopsided kind of inviting grin as she turns to get the coffee. I watch the dark shadows that follow the rippling lines of her uniform when she moves. Rachel is quite a woman. All woman.
Coffee, barefoot. Like you, soldier. Hey, your friend's real pretty, Buster.
Yeah, you think everybody's pretty.
Oh, but he's a doll. You be around long, soldier?
Long enough to get my shoes fixed, Rachel. Rachel. That name doesn't go with you.
It's a name. Too bad you're moving on so soon. New faces are scarce around here. Especially one like yours.
Well, I got some lauding for us. Will I see you before you go, Jefferson?
I'll find you, Benjamin.
Do that, boy. Eee, I'm afraid to face that heat out there. Now, you behave yourself, Rachel.
Yeah, swell.
You, like playing it tough?
Under it all beats a heart of gold. Tell me what it's like in the world outside, soldier.
Hey, Rachel, why don't you put up some more coffee?
Tend to your bacon, lover. I got company.
Your boyfriend?
Lover boy there? No, that's Kenny. He's keeping company with a hot grill.
You ought to talk about me like that, Rachel. It's not right.
Well, then don't bother me while I'm with my friends. Hey, soldier, I'm off about now. Let's you and me go out to Carnival for a couple hours, huh?
You let her alone. Don't go with her, you hear?
Yeah, I hear, Kenny. I'd like to, Rachel, but how do I go barefoot?
Oh, forgot.
Got any other ideas?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I live upstairs over this greasy spoon. Let's go up and mix ourselves something cool while we wait for your shoes.
You can't do that. It isn't nice. It don't look right.
Don't it? Let's go, Rachel.
I'm going. You can't. I'll stop you.
Go hash some potatoes, lover. My arm, soldier?
No, Rachel. I'll get someone to tend here. I'll come right up.
You do, and I'll barbecue you on your own grill.
We go out, and my feet scruff over the shaded pavement as we pass through the doorway on the left. I follow her up a flight of stairs and into a small box-like apartment. Living room, bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom.
Be it ever so humble, this is home.
Let's kick out a wall or something.
The windows don't help much, but the drinks will.
Why do you have to lean into the kitchen? Why not just walk in?
Fresh varnish on the floor. The heat don't let it dry. It's a long reach for a long drink.
It's a long day.
Here you go, soldier.
Don't you believe in mixing anything with your liquor?
What for? The cubes will melt. Now, what do we drink to, soldier?
The heat.
The heat. Cools you off, don't it?
It burns its way down my stomach and explodes.
That's good, ain't it, soldier?
My pores open and the perspiration oozes down.
Yeah, let's have another. Don't let it wear off.
She's still talking, but I'm going numb.
Let's drink to my conscience.
Heat. No food. I shouldn't be drinking. Who cares?
You're a real cute soldier.
I'm getting foggy. She's drifting closer. I don't know who kisses who first.
Oh, yeah, you're real pretty.
Bitter tears. Tears of loneliness and regret.
Another drink, huh? Hey!
Everything's moving around like feathers in a high wind.
Clumsy soldier. Here's another glass.
And sometimes one drifts in through the fog. We're drinking. How many? I don't know. Breathing, sucking down scorching air, hot, damp waves of heat, suffocating. She's close. Can smell perfume, cheap like tin earrings. Black rolling in. black velvet, and the shimmering heat, wavering like plucking a taut string. Wavering, wavering, wavering. There's a steady sound, sharp, smart little cracks.
All right.
I tear my eyelids apart and a flash of ceiling whirls by.
All right, come on.
A purple-red mass is coming toward my face, and when it hits, there's a sound and the ceiling moving the other way.
Now, why don't you?
Frozen kind of pain is seeping through to my brain, and I can make out a voice now.
And laugh.
I get my hand up to my face and wipe my eyes. My hand comes away wet and sticky and red.
Come on, wake up.
The ugly purple mass comes.
Awake now? Swell. I got something for you.
Let me alone.
Over there, in the corner of the kitchen. See how she's lying there?
Take your hands off me.
That's how I found her. You beside her and your filthy hands still tied around her throat.
What's the matter with my hands? Sticky, wet.
That's varnish and blood. Your blood. See that knife in her hand? She cut you trying to stop you. You killed her. You killed Rachel.
He doesn't make any kind of sense. The bathroom door is open, and I stagger towards it, stepping on broken glass, pain, stinging, remembering bare feet. The open shower waiting for me. I turn the handle of the cold water and half throw myself into the shock of the cold stream. I'm coming alive. A reaction setting in. Fright. He said I'd killed her.
Hey, Sheriff! Benjamin! Hey, Benjamin, come up here! I got a dirty killer for you. That lousy friend of yours killed Rachel. Come and get him.
Kenny shouting out the window in the other room to Benjamin. I gotta get away. Gotta think. What happened? What? I get through the bathroom window, out into the glare of the sun, and my feet hit the scalding tar of the marquee. I scramble across it, drop to the street. A narrow alley, and I'm running down it toward the fence that blocks off the far end. A garbage can near the fence and a woman putting something into it. I jump, reaching for the fence.
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
Let me go, let go.
Pick up that garbage, you crazy.
Let go, I didn't do it.
What do you mean? I saw you kick it over. I'm not going to clean up that mess.
I didn't kill her. Take your hands off me. Why would I kill Rachel?
Why would you kill?
All right, Jefferson. Come along and tell me why you killed Rachel.
You are listening to Mr. Sam Edwards in Sam Rolfe's story, Too Hot to Live. Tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Bachelor would be completely safe was on a stag line. Usually, of course, there's no more secure terrain. But a couple of slick swindlers figure out a new wrinkle in crime, and the stag line becomes the focal point for a neat, ruthless racket. Hear the complete story of the stag line swindlers tomorrow night when CBS Radio presents the FBI in Peace and War on most of these same stations.
And now we bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Mr. Sam Edwards in Elliot Lewis's production of Too Hot to Live, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Benjamin is leading me out into the sweltering street again. The sun burns into my flesh, accusing, as if to cause the murder to flow out of my open pores. And Benjamin walks beside me again, not holding me, just talking, asking questions, which I can't answer.
Why'd you do it, son?
I didn't kill her, Benjamin. I don't remember, but I...
You don't sound sure, Jefferson. Now, don't you know?
We were drinking. I blacked out.
Drunk unconscious. You could still move around. Could do what was done in that apartment.
But I couldn't. Why would I want to do a thing like that?
Maybe you played it too rough. Maybe she tried to stop you. Cut you with a knife. Why'd you run away?
I was scared. Kenny said my hands were around her throat. Blood, varnish, heat.
Remember anything?
Rachel. Sprawled on that gummy floor. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'll have to lock you up, and then I'll go back and have a good look around. Maybe I'll find something.
And if you don't...
Rachel's dead, Jefferson. It wasn't premeditated, but that don't excuse it. She's still dead.
They'll try to hang me. Why can't I remember what happened? What led to this? The sweat's rolling down Benjamin's forehead, collecting along the top of his glasses, sliding into his eyes. They smart and snap shut. He has to stop. Try to rub the sting away. I slap at the glasses, knocking them off his face, and grab for his gun. His arm comes down fast, hard, chopping at my hand, numbing the arm to the shoulder, and the gun falls to the road. I run, hobbling up and down, lopsided.
Jefferson!
Trying to get away from Benjamin, from the burning and torn feet under me.
Come back. You can't get far. I'll get you anyway.
I'm running again down the burning streets, out to the end of town, toward the railroad. Now off the searing pavement. But jagged rocks and sharp brush tear at the numbed pain that is my feet. I run till my legs slide away from under me, then crawl, dragging a body that has no feeling, a dead weight that robs my arms of their strength. And finally, steel rails glisten ahead as I lay sprawled out, heart and lungs going crazy in my body. Something starts down in my chest, spreads up to my throat, spilling out of my mouth. I've had enough! An hour has passed, and the sun is moving away towards the west. No trains have passed, but it's all right. I know what I have to do now. Find Kenny, and one way or another force him to tell the truth, for he must be lying. I lick my handkerchief and wipe the dried blood off my hands and feet, comb my hair, throw away the army shirt, and move back to town. Stepping gently, I make my way up the back streets to the restaurant. Pulling my pants down low to cover as much of my bare feet as possible, I step inside. There's a stranger behind the counter.
Well, howdy.
Hi, where's everybody in this town?
Oh, most are out at the carnival. Some are looking for a killer roaming around.
I heard about him. Heard he was picked up a couple of miles out.
They got him. Good deal. You know, Rachel worked here.
Yeah, I know. Say, where's Kenny?
Oh, he's out at the Clovis place. He wanted to be the one to tell Rachel's folks about, you know.
I guess I ought to go out there and pick him up. I don't know the place too well. How do I get there?
Oh, just follow this road down. About a half mile out of town, you'll find a dirt cutoff. Can't miss the mailbox.
Thanks.
Say, if you miss him, who'll I say was asking?
Just tell him his cousin Jim was here.
No, pleased to have met... Hey, you ain't wearing shoes. You're the one. You're the killer.
Run again. Another alley. Blistering pavement, cement ripping, and the jagged rocks again. Time is running, too. Running out. Benjamin will know where I'm going. Out to the main highway. Pants pulled low and thumb up in the air. Here comes my ride. He's gotta stop. Gotta stop. Please.
Hepburn, sir.
Thanks, mister. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome, but I'm not going far.
I'm just going out to the Clovis farm. That's about...
I know the place. Why are you going there now?
I'm a cousin of Kenny's. I'm going to meet him out there.
Oh, I don't place you.
I'm visiting from back east.
You're not wearing shoes.
Yeah, that's a silly thing. I lost my shoes while wading barefoot in a stream. It didn't help my feet any.
What stream is that, fella?
You know the one. I don't know the name of it. It's out there in the woods.
Yeah, I think I know the one. This is the dirt road you want. House is over the rise.
Thanks again.
See ya.
I limp up the rising dirt path. At the top, I turn for a look at my ride. He's swinging around towards town. Benjamin will get to me, and soon. An old two-storied farmhouse rises out of the cleared fields around me. A big gray barn stands off near the house, and 2 old cars are sitting empty behind it. Kenny's got to come to one of them. I'll wait. Time still running out and away from me. Little shimmering waves of heat rise off the tin hoods of the cars. Here he comes. Now or never.
Hey, quiet. Quiet or I'll break your back. I want the truth, Kenny. The truth if I have to kill you for it. I didn't kill Rachel.
You did.
I didn't. You killed her. You're crazy jealous.
No.
Yes. You came to check up. You found us drunk and you got wild. You killed her.
I didn't. I can prove it.
Prove it?
There wasn't 3 minutes between the time I left the restaurant and the time I called Benjamin. Not enough time to get up there, kill her, and bring you around.
3 minutes.
I can prove it. That's all the time. You did it. You have cut hands from her knife. Those hands were still around her throat when I came in. You killed Rachel.
And there it is. He isn't lying about the 3 minutes. That gloating smirk on his face tells me that. I had killed her. The horror of this afternoon had been for nothing. I'd tried to save my life. Instead, I'd proven myself guilty. Tied the rope finally and for all time around my neck.
Shoot him. Don't just stand there. Shoot. He's the man who killed your daughter.
He stands there watching, the gaunt sliver of a man with shins and freshly scarred wrists exposed below the edges of his clothing. A double-barrel shotgun is cradled in his arms, but he just looks at me, a wild fire striking out of the black pupils of his eyes.
Shoot him! He killed your daughter! He killed Rachel!
So, you're her father. I thought it was a nickname.
She was no daughter of mine. She was born to me, and I named her Rachel from the Bible. But she was the daughter of Satan.
I'm sorry, Mr. Clovis.
Shoot him! Because of him, Rachel is dead.
She turned away from me. But within me, the voice was strong. I followed her, begging, reading to her from the book, to the place where she lived, where she worked. But she turned me away with curses.
I'm sorry. I was drunk, crazy.
In that apartment, the stench of drink like an evil cloud. You lying there, drunk with a devil's fever.
You were there.
Shut up, you crazy old fool.
She took a knife to drive me out. These scars on my wrist, vile words, attacked me. And it came to me like a voice from on high. I knew what I must do.
You killed her. It wasn't me. It was you.
No, you did it. You couldn't keep your mouth shut.
You knew he did it, Kenny. You tried to make me believe that I'd been the one. Why?
You and tramps like you. Always keeping her from me. Coming along every time.
I couldn't know this, Kenny.
You didn't care. You laughed at me, made Rachel laugh at me. I passed the old man when I went up. I knew as soon as I walked into the room.
And you tried to blame it on me.
Why not? It wasn't the crazy old goat who killed her. It was you and men like you. She would have married me. But you and your kind came along. I hate you. You did kill her. And you'll die for it. Give me the gun, old man.
Oh, no, Kenny, not now.
Turn around, soldier. Turn around and see it when it happens.
Put up your gun, Kenneth.
No. No!
All right, Jefferson. We'll go home now.
The sun is moving down low in the skies, and a cool, light breeze has come up from somewhere. I'm leaning back on the front seat beside Benjamin, breathing deeply, evenly, feeling the goodness of just living seep through. In the back seat, old man Clovis sits, staring ahead. not even aware of the blanket-wrapped body of Kenny lying on the floor at his feet.
If you hadn't been so eager to run, I could have saved your feet a lot of wear. I knew you weren't a murderer, son.
You knew?
Sure, I went back to the apartment. The whole story's there in the varnish on the kitchen floor. No marks of bare feet around the body, but lots of hobnailed boot prints. You cut your hand on broken glass in the living room. It bled.
And I was running.
Yes. Yeah. For a man who don't care whether he lives or dies, you sure got lots of jackrabbit in your legs.
What a day. It's been quite a day, Benjamin.
Sure's been a scorcher, ain't it? Glad to see the sun going down. You know, on a day like this, it's almost too hot to live.
Don't say that, Benjamin. It never gets that hot.
Suspense, in which Sam Edwards was starred in Too Hot to Live. Next week, the story of a woman who had a strange visitor, a man who wanted to spend a day with her, just waiting until her husband got home from work so that he could kill him. It's called The Tip. That's next week on Suspense. Suspense is produced and directed by Elliot Lewis, with music composed by Lucien Morowick and conducted by Lud Gluskin. Too Hot to Live was written for Suspense by Sam Rolfe. In tonight's story, Sam Edwards was heard as Jefferson and Paul Frees as Benjamin. Featured in the cast were Mary Jane Croft, Lee Millar, Junius Matthews, Charles Calvert, Herb Butterfield, and Gene Wood. And remember, next week, Carl Abrams' play The Tip. Tragic story of an unidentified boy hit by a car after hitching a ride on the back of a truck is told tomorrow night on CBS Radio's 21st Precinct. Police of the 21st Precinct tracked down the boy's identity through his sweater marked Red Tigers. Before they're through, even case-hardened cops have to swallow hard to keep back tears. Don't miss 21st Precinct tomorrow night on most of these same stations. He really clicks against criminals, crime photographer, on the CBS Radio Network.
Sam Edwards, who starred in this episode of Suspense, probably best known as banker Bill Anderson on Little House on the Prairie, but he did appear a lot on radio in a number of shows, The Adventures of Sonny and Buddy, and The Edwards Family. And, of course, he was also an early cast member in One Man's Family. He co-starred in the comedy The First 100 Years on ABC in 1949. He was also Dexter Franklin opposite Janet Waldo in Meet Corliss Archer. And as we heard him here, he did those. His first major screen role, Chuck Ramsey in the movie serial version of Captain Midnight in 1942, and had a lot of other roles and a significant number of television roles as well. He appeared as Will Frazee on the TV series The Virginian in an episode entitled A Woman of Stone. His bibliography is quite significant, and he did very well. He died of a heart attack in July of 2004. He did live a great life. He was 89 at the time of his passing. Up next, a wartime episode of Lights Out, and maybe it was Projecting by Arch Obler in this episode entitled Bathysphere. That's up next.
Mrs. American Housewife, are you saving all your used kitchen fats and turning them into your butcher regularly? Because the Army and the Navy need them, and need them now. Every drop yields material essential to the manufacture of ammunition and medicine. Help win the war. Help shorten the war. Save kitchen fats.
Once you listen to this episode of Lights Out, you'll understand why I thought it was projecting. This goes back 81 years, June 29th, 1943.
Arch Oboler's Lights Out, everybody. It is later than you think. This is Arch Oboler bringing you another in our series of stories of the unusual. And once again we caution you, these Lights Out stories are definitely not for the timid soul. So we tell you calmly and very sincerely, if you frighten easily, turn off your radio now. November of 1939. Astronomically, that isn't even a blink in the eye of the universe, but it's a very long time measured in the length of our own very ephemeral lives. On that day, I aired our next story. Remember that date, 1939. A lot of heartbeats before we went to war against the madness of Adolf Hitler and his friend Benito. Listen to Bathysphere.
The sea is very quiet.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Will it be very quiet under the water?
No motion, Your Excellency.
I'm sure it'll all be very amusing.
I hope so, sir. The captain ought to have everything ready by now, sir. If you'll excuse me now, Your Excellency, I'll go see.
No, just a moment, Doctor.
Yes, Your Excellency?
You're much too impatient, my dear young friend. One of the great joys of an experience is to savor it before it happens. Yes, stay and talk to me.
As you say, Your Excellency.
How far under will we have to go to break the record?
Over half a mile.
Uh-huh. How far's the bottom?
Just over the record mark.
Deeper than any man's ever gone. It'll all be very amusing. Suddenly the wind's changed.
Always at this hour of the day, Your Excellency. It's time to go.
I assure you that the sea will wait for us.
But I only thought that...
Don't think so much, my young friend. Thinking is an unnecessary pastime. The emotions are much more dependable. My thoughts tell me that this little excursion under the sea will be quite precarious. On the other hand, my emotions tell me that it will be most interesting and amusing.
Your Excellency, we are ready.
Oh, Captain, you too are impatient, huh?
I don't know what you mean. That is to say...
No, don't splutter. Now, come ahead, my young and impatient friend. We'll go aboard your diving bell and begin our little adventure. Come.
Attention. You see, Your Excellency, we are quite ready.
Well, Doctor, is everything to your satisfaction?
Did you put in an extra oxygen tank, Captain?
Yes, sir. Everything just as you said, Doctor.
Telephone communication been tested?
20 times.
Searchlight?
I assure you everything has been tested, Doctor.
The winch goes smoothly now.
Why, yes, I believe...
I don't want you to believe. I want you to know.
But I assure you...
Go and test it at once.
Yes, Doctor. At once, Doctor.
All right, men. Test number one.
Aye, sir. Aye. Test number one.
Slowly. Slowly, then.
Well, your thoroughness is most commendable, Doctor.
We are going half a mile below the sea, sir. Nothing can be left to chance. The pressures down there are almost beyond imagination.
Yes, I know.
Particularly on this dive, everything must be perfection.
You mean the record?
I mean, Your Excellency, that your life is precious to the state.
Yes. The press of the world has known me only as a record breaker in the world of what they so quaintly term power politics. By nightfall, they'll herald me as a record breaker in the world of science, eh, Doctor?
If all goes well, Your Excellency.
Yes. You have doubts?
No one can predict the ways of the sea.
What are you talking about? You'll be quite apart from the sea inside of this steel ball, this bathysphere. Oxygen to breathe, telephones with which to communicate, lights with which to see. Why should there be any question?
Question of the human factor, Your Excellency.
You're as cautious as they said. I like that. I, too, am a cautious man. Oh, yes, indeed. My success has been based upon determining that the unpredictable cannot occur before shall I say, embark upon my bold adventure. I'm talking quite frankly with you, eh, Doctor? Well, it pleases me to do so. For a few hours, we'll be locked up in that steel ball. There's no reason you shouldn't know a little about your leader, is there?
You honor me, sir.
For example, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt the steel cable which will drop us down beneath the ocean has strength enough to hold 50 such steel spheres as the one we'll be in. I know, too, that you've made 30 such descents towards the floor of the ocean without the slightest misadventure. The men on this cruiser, they are specially trained for the work. And with my life in their hands, I'm sure they'll be particularly careful on this descent. Hey, Doctor?
There is no doubt of it, sir.
All ready now, sir?
Shall we go now, Your Excellency?
Yes, of course, of course.
Careful, Your Excellency. The deck is quite wet here.
Well, thank you, Captain. You very thoughtful.
Thank you, sir. Attention!
No formalities. Let the men go about their business so we can get started.
Yes, Your Excellency. At your work, men.
Would you like to get into the Bathysphere first, Your Excellency?
No, after you. Quite a small doorway, isn't it? How fortunate we're both small, lean men, Doctor. Lean men. Caesar once said something about that sort, didn't he?
I don't know much about that sort of thing, sir.
No, I didn't imagine, sir. Get in, Doctor. I'll follow you.
Yes, sir.
Head first into the steel wall. Quite without dignity, eh, Captain?
Shall I help you, sir?
No, I'll make it all right. You ready for me, Doctor?
Come ahead, sir. And now, careful of the bolt end, sir.
Careful.
That does it.
You're all right, sir?
Yes, of course I am. Well, what are we waiting for?
Captain.
Aye, sir?
Close her up.
Aye, sir.
Your ears. Cover your ears, sir.
Huh?
The bolts and wing bolts that hold the door shut, they have to be tightened by hammering with a sledge. Cover your ears, sir. Now, so they've done.
But what an infernal din. Wasn't there any other way?
Hammering is the only definite guarantee of a watertight seal, sir.
My ears.
All well in there, sir?
What's that?
A voice for the telephone, sir. They'll communicate with us from the deck every 3 minutes. If one of us doesn't answer within half a minute, the orders are to pull us up.
An excellent safety precaution, yes, indeed.
All well in there, Doctor? All well.
We're moving.
Yes. Lifting us out to the end of the boom, and then down we go. Look, sir, you can see the deck down there through the windows.
Glass, so clear.
Clearest in the world. Quartz glass to stand the pressure.
Letting us down in the water, aren't they?
Yes, sir, in a moment.
We're under.
Yes, I turn the oxygen higher.
The light. So green.
Yes. Soon it'll be blue. Then a darker blue until at around 2,000 feet we'll be in a darkness that goes beyond dark. Complete, eternal night.
Eternal night under the water. How amusing.
All well down there, sir? All well.
How far down are we?
About 1,100 feet, sir.
It's hard to believe it.
There is almost a quarter of a mile of water crushing down upon us.
The word crushing is most inappropriate at this time, my young friend.
My apologies, Your Excellency.
I've been watching the water. You said it would be as night.
it isn't black. It's blue. Strangest blue.
A few more 100 feet, and there will be no more color in the water, sir.
The light out there. What?
Well, I can't quite make it out, sir. Perhaps some sort of a luminous plankton.
It's amusing. The fish is carrying along their own electric plants.
The dark's alive with them, sir. Oh, look, sir.
What?
That small flat fish. You see, even his teeth gleam with the luminous mucus. I've caught that sort in the trawls. They can eat organisms as large as they are. Wait, I'll turn on the searchlight and you'll see.
No, never mind. I didn't come under the sea out of any interest in those bits of fish.
As you say, sir.
They'll light up like a train in the dark. Oh, but the portholes of a boat be a more appropriate figure of speech. Well, seen one, seen them all.
All well down there, sir?
All well. How far down now? Ask him.
How far? 1,350 feet. Right.
You make good time, huh?
Yes, sir. They lower us very quickly, sir.
A 6-foot ball containing a very earnest young man and the leader of the state. Headed for... How much we say, Doctor?
A new record, sir.
Is that as far as your imagination carries you?
At the moment, I cannot say, Your Excellency.
Well, perhaps when we reach the end of the cable, we'll discuss life and death very profoundly, eh, my friend? Philosophy under the sea. Yes.
All well down there, sir?
All well.
2,200 feet. Right.
How much further?
We've 4,000 feet of cable, sir.
You were right. There's a darkness out there now that's darker than any night that man has ever seen. It's amusing.
All well down there, sir?
All well.
2,800 feet, sir.
Right.
Your Excellency.
Yes?
In 10 or 11 minutes, we will have broken the record. You keep your eyes so close to that window. Might I ask why?
I thought I saw something out there.
What, sir?
Something huge. It gave off a pale green light and then was gone so quickly I'm not quite sure.
I'll turn on the switch.
No. No, this infernal darkness amuses me. Tell me, Doctor, in your other trips, have you seen anything out there? Vague, huge, you know what I mean.
Yes, sir. Several times.
Well?
Shadowy and indistinct. I couldn't say what, sir.
Can't you guess?
I have no answer. All well down there,
Oh, tell him yes, and stop annoying us.
All well, and Captain's compliments, sir. You've reached 3,028 feet, sir. That was Beebe's record.
Huh?
The old one. 3,030.
Broken it.
3,100.
Doctor, that's quite enough.
3,150.
Doctor, did you hear me? Broken the record on a few feet to spare. Order them to hold us out.
3,200.
Doctor, you out of your head? I gave you orders. Have them pull us up. I've had enough of this. I tell you that What happened?
Happened? We just landed at the bottom of the sea, that's all.
Why did you ignore my orders? I said to go up. What are you doing now? What was that lever that you threw? Answer me.
Yes, I'll answer.
Haven't you forgotten something, Doctor?
What?
To say, sir, Your Excellency.
Excellency? Here at the bottom of the sea?
What's happened to you? All of a sudden you... the excitement of creating a new record, a little too much for you, eh, my young friend? Well, it's understandable. Now signal the ships and have them draw us up. Your little adventure is over. Didn't you hear me? I said signal the ship.
How?
You out of your mind completely. Telephone them. At once, you hear me?
The telephone consists of a carbon transmitter, receiver, actuating battery, and connecting wire. We have no telephone.
Get to one side. Hello. Hello up there. Hello. Hello, answer me. Hello. Hello, blast you, answer me. Hello. But they don't do it.
The wire's torn loose. Would you know how to fix it, Your Excellency?
What? Oh, I see it. Happened when we bumped on the bottom, didn't it? Well, can't you fix it?
I can, but I won't, Your Excellency.
What is this?
It's taken you a great number of moments longer than I expected to ask that question. You notice that I've called you Your Excellency a couple of times, but that was the end of that. From now on, I will call you Your Infernal Excellency.
How amusing.
Still amusing?
Yes.
I don't believe it. You think it's some kind of madness on my part, but you'll do something about it.
Not I, you.
I?
You have an emergency way of signaling. Yes, I know you have. You flashed the searchlight on and off 3 times, and the flow of current registers up on deck. And they know that it's an emergency. I'll go ahead and do it, and perhaps I'll forget your little... shall we call it... joke?
I am quite content to stay down here.
Turn on the searchlight. All right, I'll do it myself.
Why waste your time? You've so little of it left.
What do you mean by that?
The searchlight, too, is disconnected.
Why?
There's no need of it. It will be best to die in the dark.
Die?
Yes.
This is impossible. I investigated you, your record, your family, your associates. Clearest record in the state. You have no reason in the world to kill me. Kill me? It's really funny. A young, empty-headed fool killed me. It's very amusing.
You'll be afraid soon.
Is it possible that you've forgotten the final emergency signal, you fool? Yes, I said signal. The signal of silence. I'll try the telephone as scheduled, and when we don't answer, they'll pull us up. Have you forgotten that?
It's been more than 3 minutes since the last signal. If what you say is true, why aren't we moving?
We are. For all I know, we are.
Are we?
The darkness, who can tell if there's enough for motion?
You know we're motionless. As quiet as in a tomb. Appropriate, that. And we'll stay here. I know that.
Huh?
That lever up on the roof that I pulled.
Well?
It's through the end of the steel cable, free. Yes, severed the cord between ourselves and the ship and the world.
No.
We are here, Your Infernal Excellency. Down here to stay.
No. You lie. I don't believe you. They'll pull us up. The telephone, here. Here, you up there, listen. Get me up. Get me up. You up there, hear me. It's your leader. Get me out of here. Get me out of here. You hear me? Get me out of here. Out of here. Out of here.
Oxygen left for another hour, and it takes you 10 precious minutes of your precious life to believe. You do believe you're going to die now, don't you?
But I'm sure nothing could happen. Every detail of the machinery, the record of every member of the crew.
And I was one of those who was perfectly harmless, eh?
Yes, your past. Since a boy trained in the schools of the state. Your father, an official.
Why do you do this to me? Why? Your ego is so great that even now, knowing you're going to die here with me, you're less concerned with death than you are with knowing wherein you failed.
Answer me, why do you do this? You were trained in my schools, brought up to think the way you should think. Who up there made you do this thing, and why?
It will be a slow death. As slow as the death of my country.
Answer me, who and why?
Your mouth will bite for air, and there won't be enough to let you live, and yet there'll be enough so that you won't quite die.
You'll tell me you will.
Your lungs will reach up through your mouth, a breath of air, just another. There won't be another. And as you die, you'll know it.
I want to know one thing. Why do you do this?
Why? Yes, I'll give you your whys. You trained me in your schools. And from morning to night, what went into my head was only what you decreed was right and proper for a good citizen of your eternal state to know. Yes, you crammed my head full. But there's one place you and your books and your speeches couldn't reach. My heart.
Your heart?
Yes, heart. You heard me, heart. My head said believe. My heart said no. My head said obey. My heart said no. That's where you made your mistake, you devil. You didn't start in young enough with me. For the heart that was born inside of me has brought you here to die.
I don't understand.
Wait, I'll turn a little more oxygen on. That'll give me a little more strength to keep on telling you your whys and cut the breath left for you after I'm finished. What was I saying? Yes, that you didn't condition me quite well enough. Should have started with the embryo, for somewhere along the line a little humanity got inside of me that cried out against what you were doing. It grew and grew until it said you had to die. And you will die. Yes, here in the black under the sea. And they won't roll drums for you, march for you. End it here. What have you to say to that?
You fool.
Fool? Is that all you answer?
Yes, fool.
You think I'm a fool to die here with you? You call me a fool when I know that ending here I give a new beginning to those up there.
Yes, such a fool.
Oh, stop saying that. They won't say it back in the cities when they know that they're free.
You fool. You think the freeing them of me will make them free?
Yes, of course it will.
I call you fool again. How do you think I became the head of the state? Through my great wisdom? I'm really not so wise. Through my great courage? No man has courage of that sort to stand up single-handed against the bullets and the bayonets of the entrenched powers. And how? How did I do it?
With lies and ruthlessness and cruelty, I know.
You don't know a thing. You saw the end result surrounded by pomp and circumstance, and you couldn't see the means. All right, I know I'm going to die. When a man is expected to die as long as I have, the actuality isn't quite as frightening as you might think. Since I am going to die, I'll have the one small satisfaction of showing you that you're an empty-headed fool.
Stop saying that.
Oh, you too have an ego. Apparently it's lived for weeks on how you'd make me plead and beg and squirm down on my knees. I had a few moments of hysteria, didn't I? You like that. But you don't like this. My sitting in the dark so calmly telling you that you're a fool.
I haven't failed. You're here.
You failed because if you're killing me and yourself to give them back their freedom, whatever that word means, you're dying quite in vain.
You're saying that because you think...
No, don't talk. Listen to me. I'll tell you where you failed. I came into power not alone through my own strength, but because the conditions of our country were such that other men sitting on their wealth came to the decision that I alone could keep them there.
But it was you...
I tell you, listen. When an ancient rule of privilege is threatened, it seeks to live no matter what the cost. The cost to them was me, and they found me worth it. For I threw to the mass none of the wealth they'd worked to build, but only fighting phrases of prejudice and hate that cost the men who made me nothing but the rent of the halls for the simple to hear my opiates. And so I call you fool. Fool to die and fool to kill me. Well, the conditions that made me will still exist when I'm dead. You free them of me. But what of hunger? What of ruthless exploitation? These will still be free up there to put hate and desperation into men. And so the ones who gave me power will find a new leader to stop the rumblings of rebellion with all the tricks that I taught them. A new leader. You hear me, fool? A new leader.
No, it isn't true. It can't be true.
So dark. If I could see your face, to see the fool discovering he's a fool.
They will be free. They will.
What magic do you think will come into the air when I'm dead? Will men forget their greed and say, oh, we've quite enough. That's enough for everyone. Let each share according to his needs. No, fool. With me or without me, the game will be played just as it always has been played. So you're a fool and die like one.
Well, what could I have done? I had to do something.
I'll tell you what you could have done. You could have done the one thing that would have in time helped destroy not only me, but those who made me. You could have gone to the people.
What?
Yes, walked among them, worked among them. And at every chance whispered to them the things I kept from them. A noose would have been around your neck every time you opened up your mouth. And yet, in that talking of liberty and freedom and common decency and all the rest of that sort of thing, there'd have been far more meaning in this futile murdering of me. I've had them hunted down and shot, each of those who dared to whisper among the people. But as they died, I didn't call them fools, because I knew that they were wise. That only through the will to live and do of the great bludgeoning mass of their people was their hope of making that new world they wanted. Oh, why have I bothered talking? Yes, Fisk. I'm tired. Hand me something heavy, fool.
Why?
Why? More explanations? All right, the last one. You think I'm going to sit here and wait and count my every breath until the dark's crawling with horrors and I'm No. I'll end it now, quickly. Yes, faster than a bullet shot. Give me something heavy, I tell you. I'll smash the glass. The water, tons of it, smashing in. I'll be dead, faster than the thought and that'll end it. Give me something to smash the glass or I'll...
There, sir. All well down there, sir?
Voice. Telephone.
All well. Take us up.
We're moving. There's water on the glass. We're moving. Doctor, the cable.
I lied.
But all this time, why?
My orders to the crew were to leave us alone on the bottom as soon as the slackening of the wire showed them we'd hit the bottom.
Telephone.
I reconnected it while you talked.
Then, you didn't really mean to kill me.
Kill you? Yes, I meant to kill you. Had it all planned out. Tell you what I told you, and then you'd go quite crazy with fear. And after that, I'd kill you. 2,900 feet. All well down there, sir? All well.
And yet you didn't.
The lights of the creatures out there. Blinking of stars on a cold night.
Why didn't you kill me? I want to know.
What would have been the good of it? A fool and a figurehead die together. No good of it.
So you believed me?
Even a fool can understand futility.
The water's getting lighter. Soon we'll be back. Up there. It'll be very strange at first.
I don't much care now, yet I'll ask. What happens to me?
You? I told you many things down there, didn't I? Yes, too many things. A man in doubt as I was talks too much. And since you of necessity heard what I said, when we get there, I will probably have you shot. The victim sentences his murderer. It will be most amusing.
Later recreations, the the figurehead would be given more of a, how do we put it, a German accent, and you would get the intent. 81 years ago, June 29, 1943, Lights Out here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. On our Sunday edition, we'll have Chester Morris, movies Boston Blackie, playing radio's Boston Blackie in a summer replacement series for the Amos and Andy Show from 80 years ago, June 30th, 1944. An episode of The Whistler from 76 years ago about the small-town girl. Monty Woolley as the magnificent Montague from 73 years ago. And from 71 years ago, Marie Wilson as My Friend Irma. And another episode of the White Plague series of stories from Superman. That'll be coming up on our next Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit our webpage at classicradio.stream. Next, the CBS Radio Workshop.
Are you saving old newspapers, magazines, paper bags, and boxes? Paper is a vital war material, and there's a serious shortage. Sell your waste paper or give it to a local charity. And now we move out of the theater and into the street.
Now we're going to roll up 68 years ago to June 29th, 1956, an episode of the CBS Radio Workshop, The Eternal Joan.
The CBS Radio Workshop, dedicated to man's imagination, the theater of the mind. Tonight, The Eternal Joan, the story of Jeanne d'Arc as provided by historians, novelists, and playwrights of different nationalities and points of view. Narrated on tape by Louis Cronenberger, author, playwright, and critic, and dramatized by Henry E. Fritsch, with Elspeth Eric as Joan.
Saint Margaret, have pity. Pray for her, all ye saints. Oh, Lord God, deliver her. Have mercy on her.
Burn the witch! Death to the witch!
Have pity, Saint
Warm her up, the soldiers! Hide on the burn her! Let's get it over with. Burn her to the end! Make way for the heretic!
Make way for the guest of honor!
The Master General!
A witch, the maid of France!
The strumpet!
Hey, do you see what it says?
No.
Where? On her cap. Huh? Heretic, relapsed apostate, idolater!
Mercy! We beseech thee, good Lord!
Make way! We are burning a saint.
This was the old market square in the French city of Rouen on the morning of the 30th of May, 1431. The occasion was the burning of a young peasant girl, not much past her 19th birthday. Her name was Jeanette. Her family name was d'Arc, first without an apostrophe, then with one, after Joan had got her family ennobled. We now know her as Jeanne d'Arc, or in the English equivalent, Joan of Arc. Joan died a fearful death on that pleasant May morning more than 5 centuries ago. She was tied to a wooden stake, standing on a pile of kindling and firewood, and slowly charred. She had first been excommunicated by her church.
We, having seen and weighed all there is to see and weigh, have said and decreed that in the simulation of your revelations and apparitions you have been pernicious, seductive, presumptuous, of light belief, rash, superstitious, a witch, a blasphemer of God, a despiser of him and his sacraments, a prevaricator of the
These are
divine
actual
teaching,
quotations from the official record of the trial of Joan of Arc before an ecclesiastical court at Rouen.
erring gravely at our faith and by this means having rashly trespassed against God and the Holy Church. Therefore we denounce you as a rotten member, which must be cast out and given over to the secular power.
The secular power to which Joan was given over by her own countrymen, that is, the English Army of Occupation, did not even take the trouble to hold a trial or to make formal charges. Her sentence took less than a minute.
What now, priest? Are you going to keep us here to dinner?
Take her! Take her!
Jesus! Jesus! A cross!
A kind English soldier broke a stick in half and tied it together in the form of a cross. Joan kissed the makeshift emblem and clutched it tightly to her body. A short time later, she was dead. Yet only 25 years later, Joan was cleared of all the accusations that had been brought against her, and she was officially declared a saint in 1920. More than 40,000 statues have been erected to her in France alone, plus many others in other lands, including our own United States. Why? Thousands of books and plays have been written about her in various languages. Why? Here is our own Samuel Clemens.
Caesar carried conquest far, but he did it with the trained and confident veterans of Rome, and he was a trained soldier himself. Napoleon swept away the disciplined armies of Europe, but he also was a trained soldier, and he began his work with patriot battalions, inspired by the miracle-working new breath of liberty. Joan, a mere child in years, ignorant, unlettered, a poor village girl, unknown and without influence, found a great nation lying in chains, helpless and hopeless under an alien domination. Its king was cowed, resigned, and preparing to flee the country. And Joan laid hands upon this nation, this corpse, and it rose and followed her.
But this point alone is not enough to explain the universal appeal which Joan the Maid has had for all the world. Yes, even for the Marquesas Islanders in the Pacific, who to this day are convinced that the English ate Joan, or else why would they have wanted to roast her? There's little doubt about the bare facts, since fortunately complete records of Joan's long trials have come down to us. But for the touchstones of human understanding, we have to turn to those who have tried to interpret Joan on the basis of individual insight. Her historians, novelists, and playwrights of different nationalities and points of view.
I'll start at the beginning. It's always nicer at the beginning. I'll begin with my father's house when I was still very small. I'm in the meadow now, watching my sheep. It's the first time I hear the voices after the evening Angelus.
That was the voice of Joan herself, describing her first experience with the mystic powers that controlled the rest of her short life. The scene is taken from The Clay of the Lark, written by Jean Arnoux of France and adapted by Lillian Hellman.
I still wear my hair in a thick braid. I'm not thinking of anything. I know only that God is good and that he keeps me pure and safe in this little corner of the earth near Domremy. This one little piece which has not yet been destroyed by the English invaders. I live here happy with my father, my mother, and my brothers. Then suddenly, someone behind me touched my shoulder. I know very well there is no one behind me. I turn. And there is a great blinding light. The voice is grave and sweet. I never heard that kind of voice before. That day the voice only said, "Be a good girl, Joan, and go often to church." Well, I was good, and I did go often to church, so I didn't understand why the voice spoke that way, and I was frightened. But I didn't tell anybody. I don't know why. Then came the second time. It was the noon Angelus. A light came over the sun and was stronger than the sun. There he was. I saw him. An angel in a beautiful white robe that must have been ironed by someone very careful. He didn't tell me his name that day, but later I found out he was Monseigneur the Blessed Saint Michael. Joan, go to the aid of the King of France and give him back his kingdom. But, Monseigneur, I'm only a girl. I don't even know how to ride a horse. You will go first to Monsieur de Baudricourt. He will give you men's clothes and have you taken to the Dauphin. St. Catherine and St. Margaret will go along to help you.
The Dauphin, of course, was Charles, son and presumably legal heir of the last French king, Charles VI. Charles, the father, was generally regarded as mad and had signed a treaty with England disavowing his son and recognizing Henry V of England as his heir. He had also ceded all of France north of the River Loire, which gave the English justification for their French campaigns. The Dauphin was weak, yet this was the man for whose coronation at Reims, as Charles VII of France, Joan was to give her life. Her voices had told her that. So Joan received her mission. She didn't leave her native Domremy right away. She was 17 before she felt ready to set out into the unknown world to help rescue France. For a poetic view of Joan's farewell to her beloved countryside, there is nobody better to turn to than that German romanticist to end all romanticists, Friedrich Schiller, and his play, The Maid of Orleans.
Ye mountains, ye beloved glades, ye lone and peaceful valleys, fare ye well. Through you Johanna nevermore may stray. Johanna goes and ne'er returns again. Such is to me the Spirit's high behest. To Gaul's heroic sons deliverance bring. Relieve beleaguered Reims and crown thy king.
And so, instructed by a power higher than any earthly authority, Jeanette reluctantly left her childhood home in Domremy to become the maid. A few months later, in Reims, Joan saw her great dream come true. The Dauphin, her Dauphin, was anointed with the heaven-sent oil and formally crowned King Charles VII of France. When Joan left home, Papa Jacques and Mama Isabel knew only that their daughter was going to visit her favorite uncle in the village of Bury. But Bury was near Vaucouleurs, the residence of Messire Robert de Baudricourt, whom the Archangel had directed Joan to see as the first step in her mission. The actual meeting, when it took place, may well have been one of the most hilarious interviews of all time. Here is the version of Bernard Shaw, whose play St. Joan is generally regarded as the classic interpretation of Joan's character and behavior. The loud voice is that of the captain, Sire Robert de Baudricourt. But the first voice is that of his unhappy steward, fresh out of eggs.
Sir, I tell you there are no eggs. There will be none. Not if you kill me for it as long as the maid is at the door.
The maid? What maid? What are you talking about?
The girl from Lorraine, sir. From Domremy.
30,000 thunders, I told you to throw her out.
You have 50 men-at-arms and a dozen lumps of able-bodied servants to carry out my orders. Are they afraid of her?
She is so positive, sir.
Positive? Now, see here, I'm going to throw you downstairs.
No, sir, please.
Well, stop me by being positive. It's quite easy. Any slut of a girl can do it.
Sir, you cannot get rid of her by throwing me out. You see, sir, you are much more positive than I am. But so is she.
You parcel of curs. You are afraid of her.
No, sir, we are afraid of you, but she puts courage into us. She really doesn't seem afraid of anything. Perhaps you could frighten her, sir.
Perhaps. Where is she now?
Down in the courtyard, sir, talking to the soldiers as usual.
She shall talk to me a bit. Hello! You there! Come up here. You, soldiers, show her the way. And shove her along quick.
She wants to go and be a soldier herself. She wants you to give her soldiers' clothes, armor, sir, and a sword.
Good morning, Captain Squire. Captain, you are to give me a horse and armor and some soldiers and send me to the Dauphin. Those are your orders from my lord.
Orders from your lord? And who may your lord be? Go back to him and tell him that I am neither duke nor peer at his orders. I am Squire of Baudricourt, and I take no orders except from the king.
Yes, Squire, that's all right. My lord is the King of Heaven.
Why, the girl's mad.
They all say I'm mad till I talk to them, Squire. But you will see that it is the will of God that you are to do what he has put in my mind.
It is the will of God that I shall send you back to your father with orders to put you under lock and key and thrash the madness out of you.
You think you will, Squire, but you'll find it all coming quite different. You said you would not see me, but here I am.
Now listen to me. I am going to assert myself.
Please do, Squire. The horse will cost 16 francs. It's a good deal of money, but I can save it on the armor. I shall not want many soldiers. The Dauphin will give me all I need to raise the siege of Orleans.
To raise the siege of Orleans?
Yes, Squire. That is what God is sending me to do.
Well, I am damned.
No, Squire. God is very merciful. You will go to paradise, and your name will be remembered as my first helper.
Joan got her horse, her equipment, and her escort. But when her small party arrived at Chinon after a hard ride through 350 miles of winter landscape, she still faced her main problem. How was she, a poor, illiterate country girl, going to get an audience with the Dauphin himself? News of her arrival at Chinon finally reached even the ears of the Dauphin, and Joan was in the end admitted to the court. But to make sure that she was really divinely inspired, Charles and his courtiers decided to play a trick on her. Someone else would sit on the throne and pretend to be the Dauphin, while Charles himself would hide in the crowd of attendants, making himself inconspicuous. Here are two versions of what happened when Joan entered the royal hall of the chateau at Chinon. The first is that of Schiller. As Joan enters, she surveys the resplendent hall, then looks up at the army commander, Dunois, who in this version is impersonating the Dauphin on his throne. Dunois welcomes her.
Art thou the wondrous maiden?
Dunois of Orleans, thou wilt tempt thy God. This place abandoned which becomes thee not. To this more mighty one the maid is sent.
Joan walks firmly toward the Dauphin, who is peering from behind the back of a knight. She kneels before him. Charles is understandably surprised.
Maiden, thou ne'er hast seen my face before. Whence hast thou this knowledge?
Thee I saw when none beside save God in heaven saw thee. Bethink thee, Dauphin, in the bygone night when all around lay buried in deep sleep, thou from thy couch didst rise and offer up an earnest prayer to God.
Disclose to me my prayer, and I shall doubt no more that God inspired thee.
Thou didst pray that if there were appended in this crown unjust possession, or if heavy guilt occasioned this most lamentable war, God would accept thee as a sacrifice. Have mercy on thy people, and pour forth upon thy head the chalice of his wrath.
Who art thou, mighty one? Whence comest thou? Shall I indeed withstand mine enemies?
France I will lay submissive at thy feet.
And Orleans, sayest thou, will not be surrendered?
The Loire shall sooner run its waters back.
Shall I in triumph enter Reims?
I through 10,000 foes will lead thee.
In the modern Anouilh Hellman play, the Dauphin is no storybook king. As the scene opens, Charles is lolling indolently on his throne, playing with one of those cup and ball toys that still delight children today. Enter the Archbishop of Reims.
Oh, Archbishop, you have arrived just in time. I am on the point of governing.
There is not time for jest, Your Majesty. We are faced with the dangerous problem of this peasant girl. The people are in love with her. They are convinced that God has sent her to you and that she alone can save France. They think she works miracles.
I have sympathy for them. They are as desperate as I am. As for this girl, I have no curiosity about her. I know too many people as it is, and a messenger from God doesn't sound very amusing. But I want to be a good king and please my people, therefore I shall see this girl. I think I might like to play a trick on her. Let's put a page upon the throne. Let's clothe him in the royal doublet with the fewest patches. He'll look better than I do. And let us enjoy the sight of God's envoy pleading her cause to a page boy.
And so, when Joan timidly enters the throne room, it's a young court attendant who is impersonating the Dauphin. She sees through the deception, however, just as quickly as she did in the case of Dunois in Schiller's play. She surveys the crowd and walks straight to Charles, who tries to run from her.
What do you want?
Noble Dauphin, I am Joan the maid. The King of Heaven has sent me to tell you that you must be anointed and crowned in the city of Reims.
Well, that is splendid, mademoiselle, but Reims is in the hands of the English, as far as I know. How shall we get there?
We will fight our way there, Noble Dauphin. First we will take Orleans, and then we will walk to Reims. God told me, Noble Dauphin.
You haven't come here to kill me? No. No, of course not. You have an honest face. I've lived so long with these pirates that I've almost forgotten what an honest face looks like. Are there many people who have honest faces?
Many, sire.
Well, I never see them. But all right, start boring me. Tell me that I ought to be a great king.
Yes, Charles.
In the end, Joan gets what she wants. Her army, her appointment, and a dazzling white suit of armor especially made for her. Joan's effect upon the English troops, who had been just about invincible until she appeared, is described by Schiller. The voices are those of English soldiers, except for the rather heart-rending lament of their commander, Sir John Talbot.
The maiden in the camp!
Impossible, it cannot be. How comes she in the camp?
Why, through the air. The devil aided her.
Why? We're dead men!
They heed me not. They stay not at my call. The sacred bonds of discipline are loosed. I cannot rally even the smallest troop. Who is she then? The irresistible, the dread-inspiring goddess who doth turn at once the tide of battle and transform to lion's bold a herd of timid deer. A woman snatched from me all martial fame.
The maiden comes. Fly, General, fly!
Well, as we know, the army with which Joan took the field did liberate Orleans, and within a few months had cleared the road to Reims so that the Dauphin could be properly consecrated King of France. Joan's army then turned to liberate Paris, but the siege of Paris was called off. Joan, wounded for the third time in a year, was captured some months later by Burgundian soldiers who were then allied with the English. The Burgundians sold her to the English command for 10,000 French pounds, a sum normally paid only for the highest nobles. The English, in turn, handed Joan over to a French ecclesiastical court convened in English-occupied Rouen for trial on charges of sorcery, witchcraft, or anything else that would lead to excommunication. The idea was that once Joan had been convicted on any such charge by her own countrymen, the English would be free to condemn and execute her for the damage she had caused them. And that's the way it worked out.
Joan, commonly called the Maid, having been captured within our diocese of Beauvais, and having been surrendered, dispatched, given, and delivered to us as a person vehemently suspected of heresy.
After weeks of badgering, Joan, exhausted and terrified of death by fire, finally put her mark to a paper which she was unable to read, admitting all the sins charged against her and forswearing them for the future. She even resumed female clothing for a short time. But when she found out that her promised acquittal would mean only life imprisonment on a diet of bread and water, the bread of sorrow and the water of affliction, as the judges put it, she decided that she preferred a swifter death, however horrible. Bernard Shaw describes her so-called relapse like this.
They told me you were fools. You promised me my life, but you lied. You think that life is nothing but not being stone dead? It is not the bread and water I fear. Bread has no sorrow for me, and water no affliction. But to shut me from the light of the sky and the sight of the fields and flowers, to chain my feet, to make me breathe foul, damp darkness, and keep me from everything that brings me back to the love of God. I could do without my war horse. I could drag about in a skirt. I could let the banners and the trumpets and the knights and soldiers pass me and leave me behind as they leave the other women. If only I could still hear the wind and the trees, the larks and the sunshine, the young lambs crying through the healthy frost, and the blessed church bells. But without these things I cannot live. What I am, I will not denounce. What I have done, I will not deny.
And we still have from Joan what is perhaps the most touching answer ever given to a life and death question in the history of Inquisition.
Joan, do you now believe yourself to be in a state of grace?
If I am not, may God put me there. If I am, may God so keep me.
That was Joan of Arc. Did anyone ever understand her? Do we understand her today? Perhaps Jean Anouilh said it best.
You cannot explain Joan any more than you can explain the tiniest flower growing by the wayside. There's just a little living flower that has always known, ever since it was a microscopic seed, how many petals it would have and how big they would grow, exactly how blue its blue would be, and how its delicate scent would be compounded. There is just the phenomenon of Joan, as there is the phenomenon of a daisy, or the sky, or a bird.
What pretentious creatures men are, if that is not enough for them.
You have been listening to the CBS Radio Workshop and the Eternal Joan, a treatment of the Joan of Arc story. Written by Henry E. Fritsch, with Elspeth Eric as Joan and Louis Cronenberger, drama critic for Time magazine, as tape narrator. The Eternal Joan was produced and directed by Paul Roberts. Music composed and conducted by Alexander Steinert. Included in tonight's cast were Alan Hewitt as Baudricourt and Jack Manning as the Dauphin. Also heard were John Gibson, Daniel Ocko, Bob Dryden, Louis Van Rooten, Roger DeKoven, Ed Prentice, Guy Repp, Ellen Muir, Gladys Holland, and Ruth Tobin. This is Bob Hite inviting you to join us next week when from Hollywood we'll present A Portrait of Paris, a word picture of the French capital, recorded by David Schoenbrunn, chief of the Paris Bureau of CBS News. America listens most to the CBS Radio Network.
68 years ago, June 29, 1956, the CBS Radio Workshop here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream. Up next, an episode of Claudia.
Because millions in Europe and Asia still have need for clothing and food relief, and because nonprofit CARE still sends more food and clothing per dollar spent, continue to give the CARE Way for the relief of misery in foreign lands. Send your name and the name of the person you're helping with complete address to CARE, New York. Enclose $10 or $6.95 for the new budget parcel. CARE, New York.
And you can also go to care.org to find out what CARE is doing today. Speaking of care, we care a lot about Claudia and David. And let's find out what's going on in this episode of Claudia from 76 years ago, June 29th, 1948.
Your Coca-Cola bottler presents Claudia, based on the famous play and novels by Rose Franken. Brought to you transcribed Monday through Friday by your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. Relax, and while you're listening, refresh yourself. Have a Coke. And now, Claudia.
La 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 la.
Hey, Mama, do you mind if I use your telephone?
Since when do you ask my permission?
Well, this is your telephone, Mama. I don't want to impose.
Fine time to think of that.
Yes, but this is the first time I made a long-distance call on your phone.
That's the least of my worries. Who are you telephoning?
Oh, my, aren't you curious?
Well, since it is my telephone.
Aha, now it's your telephone. Well, since you're so interested, I thought I'd telephone the house in Eastbrook and ask Gertrude how the family is.
You have my permission for that.
Funny to think of the house sitting there without us in it.
Must be so quiet.
It's nice here, too, though. Just the way it used to be with you, David, me.
I?
You, David, and quote, I, unquote, here in your apartment. It's almost as if we'd just gotten married.
With a few modifications.
Just a few. Anyway, I think I'll call Gertrude. What time is it?
Why don't you ask Gertrude?
Waste my money on a long-distance call for that? What's the matter with your watch?
It's on the mantel.
Well, that's a fine place for it to be. Oh, 6:30. David ought to be home soon. It's funny, in a way, I still think of this apartment as home.
Well, it was for a good many years.
Nice years. I never expected any years to be nicer. And I met David.
And hoodwinked him into marrying you. Poor David.
I never thought everything could change in a year. It certainly has.
Any minute now, it's going to change even more.
First we were here, just you and me.
I.
Just you and, quote, I, unquote. Then there was David. Now there'll be...
What are you going to call him?
Well, we're torn. We can't decide between Michael, Anthony, Peter, and Robert.
That's quite a choice.
I can't choose. I guess we'll just have to have 4 sons to make it easier.
Your idea of easier is a little off-center.
Then there'll be 7 of us. 7, that's a nice number to be.
You better call Gertrude. David will be here, and you won't want to be talking on the phone.
Oh, Mama, sometimes you're so intelligent. You must get it from me. And since you're so intelligent, you can answer a question for me.
I can't always answer your questions, but I refuse to take the blame for that.
I've been thinking, where do you think David ought to stay while I'm at the hospital?
I've been thinking of that, too.
He hasn't said anything about it.
He's probably planning to stay at his brother's.
Think so?
It's the most comfortable and convenient place for him.
Hardly is his brother. At bottom, they're very alike, too. Though David never married Julia, and Hartley did.
Julia doesn't like dogs.
I'll miss David, but Hartley is his family, and, well, he'll want to be with him.
Well, I'll ask him as soon as he gets home, because I promised to let Julia know tonight.
It's all settled. Now, get on with your phone call.
I miss Bluff, don't you?
Personally, I think it's rather nice to walk around without tripping over that dog of yours.
I'm so glad you like him. Operator, do you please connect me with Eastbrook 527, ring 3? Yes, I'll wait. Feels strange calling myself up. I keep expecting me to answer my phone. Well, my number is Plaza 55744, operator.
Your number? You certainly make yourself at home.
That's because I'm such a good hostess. Hello? Hello, Gertrude, this is me.
Aye. Claudia, when will you learn?
It's me, Mrs. Norton. Yes, I'm in New York. How is everything? How's the house? No trouble at all? Oh, why does everything go so smoothly when I'm not there?
That is no doubt the reason.
Hush up, Mama. Gertrude, I've called to find out how Bluff is. Is he eating well? Does he miss us? Oh, wait till I tell Mama. And how's Shakespeare, Gertrude? He did? Wait till I tell Mama.
Oh, this phone call is going to cost $1 million.
Shakespeare climbed a tree this morning, Mama.
The cat will play while the mice are away.
And now, Gertrude, tell me how you are.
It's about time. If I were Gertrude, I'd leave without giving her any notice.
Hush up. How could I hear how Gertrude is? What did you say? Oh. Oh, dear.
I'll bet you're sorry you asked.
She took me seriously. She's really telling me.
They always do.
Oh, well, Gertrude, Yes, I see, but... Well, Gertrude, why don't you...
How is she? Is she sick?
No, she's fine, she says. Yes, Gertrude,
Everybody home?
Claudia's on the telephone, David.
Doesn't surprise me. Who's she talking to?
To Gertrude.
Be quiet, you two. I can't hear a word she's saying.
Well,
Yes, Gertrude,
how's my
I'm
mother-in-law tonight?
Bearing up.
And how's Claudia?
It's fine. Oh, yes, Gertrude, I'm listening.
What's Gertrude saying?
Don't ask me.
Mama, come over here. Mama, how is Claudia, really?
She seems fine, David. Full of energy and questions.
Nothing different.
Not a thing.
How much longer do you think it'll be?
Trying my best to get her to finish what she's saying.
We're not talking about Gertrude. Go back to your phone call.
Yes, Gertrude, I'm listening. Go on.
There's no telling when it'll be, David. You know how babies are. They come when they please.
Every time the phone rang down at the office today, I thought sure it was you calling me.
Have patience. I'll make the phone ring with a very special ring when it's about your son.
I'll do that, Mother. Hey, you. Hey, what's going on the telephone?
Shh, David. Well, Gertrude, I'm certainly glad to hear that. Yes, we'll call you again, Gertrude, as soon as there's any news. Goodbye.
Well, what'd she have to say?
Not a thing.
Not a thing?
Not a word. Nothing's new. Everything's fine.
What on earth was she talking about?
I don't know. I was trying to listen to what you were whispering about to Mama.
You little eavesdropper. Didn't your mother teach you any manners?
Not a one.
Claudia was a very poor student.
Mama was a very poor teacher.
Well, here we are again. The three of us.
Yep.
Sit down, David. Make yourself at home. The stew's stewing on the stove.
Oh, David, you look tired.
Do I?
Mm.
Well, I had a fairly busy day down at the office today.
You miss Eastbrook terribly?
Eastbrook? No, not a bit.
He puts up a brave front, doesn't he, Mama?
Well, he may not miss Eastbrook, but I do.
Mama is in love with our dog, David.
No.
Mama was able to have a little more privacy in Eastbrook.
80 acres in Eastbrook and only 4.5 rooms in New York. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about, Mr. Norton.
What is that?
When I go to the hospital.
Which will be any week now.
Any week?
Heaven help us.
Knock wood, knock wood.
Cross your fingers.
Where are you going to go, David?
To the nearest cigar store.
Oh, you're not going to be the kind to hand out cigars, are you?
No, why not?
I thought you weren't going to be a typical father.
There's no such thing as an untypical father.
Anyway, that's not what I meant. I meant, where are you going to live while I'm at the hospital?
We've plenty of time to think about that.
How do you know we have plenty of time? I think we ought to discuss it now.
All right. Go right ahead. Discuss it.
Well, now, Mama and I think that the most sensible place for you to stay is at Julia and Hartley's.
Oh, you do?
Mama and I have been discussing it.
Oh, you have?
Mama and I feel that the place for you at a time like this is with your brother.
Oh, it is.
David, haven't you got something more to say than that?
Well, my future is being disposed of so eloquently. What more do I have to say?
Well, don't you have an opinion?
Yes, I have an opinion.
Well, it's a free country. Out with it.
You mean it's a free country for husbands, too?
Claudia tells me it's free for mothers as well, but I've stopped believing that.
We don't have it easy, do we, Mother?
Anything but.
You too. If I weren't so smart, I'd have an inferiority complex.
Then go ahead, have one. Nothing's stopping you.
I will ignore that. David, listen, don't you honestly think you ought to stay at Julian Hartley's?
You really want to know?
Why do you think I'm asking you?
Sometimes I wonder.
Julian Hartley, have plenty of room for you. You have a whole floor for yourself.
What are you going to do with a whole floor, David?
I'm going to pace up and down and up and down and up and down again.
Seriously, David, they'd love to have you.
I hope you haven't asked them.
No, Julia asked me this afternoon. She said, quote, Claudia, we're expecting David, you know, unquote.
Julia didn't ask. She told.
It's a woman's world.
They love to have you, David.
That's nice.
You have finger bowls at every meal. The butler will press your suits every morning. Hartley will give you his best brandy. And you'll have a private elevator to go up and down in.
No.
Yes.
I don't know how I've survived without it so long. I really
Well,
don't.
now that it's all settled, why don't you call up Julia and tell her?
Because it isn't all settled.
Since when?
Since always, I have quite different plans for those 10 days.
I think I'll have a look at the lambs, too.
You stay here, Mama. After all, when I'm not around, David's your responsibility.
There's no rest for the weary.
Do you want to hear my plans?
Well,
There's a certain rather beautiful woman I know that I'm extremely fond of.
Oh?
I'd rather decided that it would be a good time for me to show that beautiful woman the town.
Mama, listen to him.
I thought I'd take her out to dinner, to all the nice restaurants. Perhaps I might even take her to a nightclub.
Well, it's more than you've ever done for me.
And then let's see what else. If there's a good Mickey Mouse around, I'll even take her to the movies.
Oh.
If it's a sunny afternoon, I'd rather plan to wander over to the zoo. Take this friend of mine on a horse and buggy ride around the park, perhaps.
I'm seething.
Would be a rather nice 10 days, providing I didn't have to stay at Julia and Hartley's.
Well, nobody says you have to. I just thought you'd like to. I was only thinking of you.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, let me see. What were some of the other plans I made?
I'm not sure I want to hear any more.
You little goose. Sometimes I really think you aren't as bright as I think you are.
He's not making any sense, Mama.
Let him go on, Claudia. Maybe he's making a great deal of sense.
You're wiser than your daughter, Mrs. Brown. I think you've guessed whom I consider the most beautiful woman in the world, next to my wife.
I don't want to be the one to say whom I think it is.
Oh, David, you darling. I've known all along who you meant because I've always thought, after me, Mama was the most beautiful woman, too.
Then we're all of the same opinion. And both you, Mrs. Brown and Mrs. Norton, are very conceited wenches.
I think now I really better go look at the lambs, too. You're both fools, but nice fools.
Oh, darling. I didn't want you to feel you had to stay here if you'd rather not.
No place I'd rather stay.
You two sound as if you're going to have the most wonderful time.
Oh, we are.
Not going to miss me at all?
You? No, not at all.
Sometimes I wish...
You wish what?
Nothing.
Are you frightened, darling?
Nope. Just jealous. I'm going to be all alone. You're going to have each other.
Yes, Mama and I'll have each other, darling, but that's just going to make us feel all the more alone without you. Now, come on. Come over here. You forgot to kiss me hello.
La 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 la.
If there's a youth center in your community, you'll notice that the very hub of all the fun is the Coke cooler. For Coca-Cola seems somehow to promote sociability. That's why young folks appreciate Coke at home. They like to be able to share it with their friends, just as you do. And since it's only a nickel a bottle, this is a pleasure few parents need deny their families. Suppose you order a case today.
I'm a very flattered mother-in-law tonight, Mr. King.
Well, Mrs. Brown, David means every word he says.
And so do I, though I never can say very much.
Oh, you don't have to, Mrs. Brown.
I'm a very lucky woman, Mr. King.
Wait till tomorrow, Mrs. Brown.
Tomorrow? What for?
Well, tomorrow you'll take a walk with Claudia.
Yes?
But it'll be more than just a walk. It'll be a sort of reliving of the past few months, as seen through Claudia's eyes.
I'm looking forward to that walk. Thank you for telling me. Till tomorrow, Mr. King.
Till tomorrow, Mrs. Brown. As I was about to say, every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you transcribed with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again tomorrow at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir. And remember, whoever you are, whatever you do, wherever you may be, when you think of refreshment, think of Coca-Cola. For Coca-Cola makes any pause the pause that refreshes. And ice-cold Coca-Cola is everywhere. This broadcast of Claudia was supervised and directed by William Brown Maloney.
From June 29th, 1948, Claudia here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. On tomorrow's program, Chester Morris as Boston Blackie, The Whistler, The Magnificent Montague starring Monty Woolley, Marie Wilson and My Friend Irma, and another episode in The Adventures of Superman. That's coming up for your Sunday dining and dancing pleasure. On Monday, we'll have some westerns with Gunsmoke, Fort Laramie, Roy Rogers, and then we will take a trip to the unknown with a logic named Joe. It's an episode of Dimension X and another episode of Claudia. And then on Tuesday, Bob Bailey, Virginia Gregg, and Let George Do It. I Was a Communist for the FBI, Night Watch, and Gangbusters. Have yourself a great last weekend, and we will see you soon here on Classic Radio Theater. I'm Wyatt Cox.